Hi, how are you? My name is Dr. Shannon Lane, and I am an associate professor at the Wurzweiler School of Social Work at Yeshiva University. And this video is designed to give you some insight into discussion board posting. And these tips are going to be specifically for social welfare organization, but they also will apply to most of the online classes that you're going to take while you're at Wurzweiler. And so I think this will be useful practice for you in future discussion posts as well. So discussion posts can sometimes feel a little bit awkward in an online class. They're really designed to take the place of those fun, interesting, sort of back and forth classroom discussions that we would be having if we were all in the same room. And there's no way to do that perfectly in the online setting when we are not all together at the same time. But here are some things that you can do in your discussion posts to make them helpful and interesting, to make them useful for you, to make them useful for your classmates, and to make sure that you get the points on them that I'm sure everybody would like to have when you finish all this hard work. So the first thing is that you want to make sure that you, as with any assignment, that you read the question really carefully, and that if you're not completely sure what the question is asking for, that you reach out to your instructor and make sure that you get some guidance on that, because you don't want to spend a ton of time on something that then is not directly answering the questions of the assignment, which would then lose you some points. And also just not be, it wouldn't fit into the discussion. I think we've all been in a room where we're talking about one thing and somebody says, and by the way, and they sort of go off on this tangent. Like, you don't want to be the online version of that. The next thing to think about is, in most cases, this will specifically be listed in the assignment. Is there a specific requirement that it link to any particular course reading? And if not, you still want to be really sure that you link to course readings in general to make sure that you're connecting the discussion back to the lecture or the readings that you've done in advance. And so this sample rubric that I have shared on the screen with you suggests that in this particular rubric, that just as many of your points will come from connecting back to your course materials as from the actual ideas and arguments that you have yourself. And so what that generally looks like is that you'll cite, in my classes, I will often ask people to cite 2 or 3 course materials, and I might say specifically, make sure you focus on this one. Those sites should be APA format. If you're not sure what that looks like, again, that's a great time to ask your instructor. And the important thing is not just to say, this connects to the reading on such and such, but to explain how it connects or how it helps you, how you're thinking about that reading or what questions you have about that reading that connect to the discussion topic. The next thing to think about is your connection to the learning community. So once you have hit submit on a post in a discussion board here at Wurzweiler, you are not done. That would sort of be like if you raise your hand in the middle of the classroom and you said, I think, the sky is green, and then you walked out of the room, right? And so what we want you to do is not walk out of the room. We want you to stick around. We want you to read your classmates' discussions and respond to them. And we also want to make sure that if other people respond to you and they ask you questions or amplify your points, that you continue that conversation as well, right? So again, thinking of the classroom analogy. So if I said, I think the sky is green, and the person next to me said, Shannon, why do you think that? And I just ignored them completely. That's what it's like if somebody asks you a question on your discussion post and you don't respond. So that's your responsibility to sort of keep track of those discussions as we go through the week that you're in, and make sure that you are paying attention to the questions that people have asked and responding to them. Sometimes it's hard, I think, to know what to respond to in a post, because saying like, yes, Natalie, I think that was a great argument, is not really a substantive response to a discussion. So some things to think about are going back to, some of our basic questions, right? You can think of what questions you want to ask people. So if somebody says, I read a study about this, you could say, can you tell me where you found that study? I found this study that says something different. When do we think that this policy changed? Why do we think this is important to social work students or to social workers or to social work clients? How could we go about changing this if we think it's not, it's not socially just, right? So those are the kinds of questions that might help you formulate those. Another thing to think about is that if somebody says, like, they come up with a point out of the reading, and of a news article or something you've read in another class that amplifies that or suggests that, sharing that resource and that reading in there can be really helpful to your classmates. So when you're thinking about contributing to the learning community, in most situations, you're going to be expected to respond to at least two other people's posts and think about ways that you can respond that are adding something to the conversation. It's always totally great to say, yes, Ellen, I thought that was a great post, but that's not in and of itself, that's not enough, right? We want you to contribute and continue and lengthen the conversation, not just to give people pats on the back, because pats on the back are great, but they don't move the conversation forward. And finally, mostly when we are doing our discussion posts, we will have at least a couple of points for writing quality. So what that just means is proofread your writing, make sure that the sentences are finished, make sure that the thoughts are finished, try to clear up typos and such as best you can. When I'm writing discussion posts, I write them in a document in Word or whatever word processing software you're using. And I do that for two reasons. Number one, because then it's a lot easier to check my grammar and spelling and such in those, right? Because Word gives you some helpful hints in that regard. But also because I've had situations where I'm writing a discussion post and my internet connection goes out. And in that situation, everything you've been writing in that discussion board is gone. And that is a terrible situation. So if you write it in a Word document and your internet goes out, you still have what you've written and you just need to cut and paste it back into Canvas. And so that will be both helpful for you in this writing quality and also helpful in making sure you don't lose your work. And then finally, if you have cited anything, whether it's a course reading or something outside of the course, please make sure that at the end of your post you include a short reference list in APA style that shows what those links are. And again, if you have questions about APA style, your instructor can help you. There's some guides within the Wurzweiler universe, and we also have a phenomenal writing center who can help you with that. And particularly as you're starting the program, your instructors aren't looking to take away points on things like writing style and APA. They're really looking for ways to help you learn that. So as you start to write longer assignments and bigger things, you have those skills handy, and you've learned them on these sort of smaller assignments, and you can practice it rather than learning it when you're working on a big 15-page paper. That's a big chunk of your grade. So hopefully this is helpful for you in thinking about how to respond to discussion posts. And again, please don't hesitate to reach out to your instructor, to your student access coordinator, whoever is around you. We really want this course to be interesting and educational and help welcome you into the Wurzweiler community and into the social work profession. And so we would love to hear from you what you need in order to make that happen successfully. Thanks.